Hi guys, so Times Radio took to the streets of Boris Johnson's old constituency to get a feeling of what people's attitudes are to the former MP for the area. But also, with a general election perhaps this year, if the Tories can still rely on voters to back the party. Now, a journalist asked people in a shopping district, and the answers we got were, how can I put this, from confusing to depressing. Have a listen here to the people of Uxbridge.
Johnson was bad enough in this place, but he's ruined the country. That's all I want to say, but I will not be voting Conservative.
Well said. At least we have one person here at the very beginning saying they will not be voting Conservative. Unfortunately, it goes a bit downhill after this.
So it sounds to me like you're quite Conservative-minded but not impressed by them at the moment. So who are you leaning towards instead?
Well, I'll probably still end up voting Conservative because my daughters go to private schools and I don't want to be paying extra VAT when the Labour comes along.
Right, so that's one of Keir Starmer's key pledges and that's really put you off?
Yes.
So this guy is looking at the NHS on its knees. He's looking at farmers slaughtering their own animals. He's looking at fields with fruit and vegetables rotting in them because farmers can't access the workers they need. He's looking at the economy suffering because of Brexit. He's looking at corruption and a whole range of problems facing Britain. And his priority is VAT on private school fees. Now, this guy is probably rich enough to afford those, even if they were implemented. I don't think he's going to say, well, I'm not going to send my daughters to private school anymore. I'm going to send them to a state school because of VAT. So yes, it will have some sort of economic impact on him, but I doubt it's going to change his mind. So all the problems in the world that are taking place at the moment, his priority is VAT on private school fees.
Who do you think you're going to vote for? Is that not something you're going to share?
I always vote Conservative normally, so...
What did you think of Boris Johnson?
Oh, I love Boris. I really did love Boris.
Okay, here are the sycophants. The people who are part of the cult of personality. Like I've said before, you should vote based on policy, not personality. Now, luckily, the leader of both parties at the moment don't have a personality, so I hope people will instead vote on policy. Of course, that's not always the case, but this idea that, yes, I voted for Boris Johnson because I love Boris Johnson, because he's a big, giant, cuddly teddy bear with ruffled hair. These people are too far gone. You can't actually get through to them. You can't actually say, well, this is what you should vote. These are policies that would help you. They don't care because they loved Boris Johnson, because he was a bit of a clown, because he was popular, because he had charisma. Didn't matter if he was throwing people under a bus. He was doing it with a smile.
Boris.
Never been a fan of Boris. I've actually met him a few times. Not a bad bloke, but I think a commoner like me being MP, I think he would have been kicked out of my...
And this guy makes a very valid point, that if he was a commoner, would have been kicked out a long time ago. The reason Boris Johnson was able to stay in power for so long was because of his connections and because he went to private school. When Boris Johnson went to Eton, he was described as entitled. At Eton, he was described as entitled. And this is a big problem. You know, I think it was Graham Hughes described Britain as having an Eton disorder. You have something like 7% of the population have attended private schools, but in Parliament it's something like 70% of MPs have attended private school. So you have people who do not represent in any real way society running the country. And Boris Johnson, and I said it before, Boris Johnson treated Parliament as a joke. He treated it as a debating chamber, like when he was at Oxford. It wasn't about running the country. It was about boosting his own image and his own ego.
Asked a long time before he has been, if you know what I mean.
What about Labour? They're trying to win this seat. They're making a big play for it.
Well,
Not impressed?
Won't get my vote, that's for sure.
Unfortunately, she wasn't asked why. Why would you not vote for the Labour Party? Is it their policies? Can you describe a policy that you have a problem with? Probably not. It's because, well, they're not Boris Johnson. As I said, too far gone. Some people you cannot win over. You can't reason people out of a position that they were not reasoned into.
And do you miss Boris Johnson?
I liked him, but no, he is not very detail oriented. He wasn't a very good prime minister.
So I think he got a rougher thing here. I mean, surprise party, bit of cake. We didn't all do it, did we? But no, I love Boris.
What do you think of Boris Johnson? Do you miss him?
I do. I think he was foolish, but I wish he was still the Premier.
He was foolish, but I wish he was still the Premier. I wish he was still Prime Minister. Foolish about what? See, this is another thing that goes along with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson, he just made a few mistakes, but he was a good guy. Once again, these people are too far gone. You can't convince them that Boris Johnson was a disaster. Boris Johnson was a liar. And it also it brings me to the idea that many people are convinced that, well, he does lie, but he didn't lie to us. He didn't lie to me. So when he made a promise to me, he was being sincere. Okay.
Well, cost of living is basically most of the trouble.
Yeah.
You know, ULEZ, it doesn't affect me, fortunately.
Right.
So that's all for me, really.
Have you got views on the ULEZ expansion?
It doesn't affect me. I don't drive, but I think it's unfair.
You think it's unfair? Okay. So the Conservatives are planning to campaign quite hard against the ULEZ. So is that something?
They did also against HS2.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen.
Okay.
Because the Tories lie to you, but you're still going to vote for them. Like, what do you say to somebody who says, yeah, I was lied to, but I'm going to continue to vote for this party. I'm going to vote for the party that has continually lied to me. Are these people too far gone? Can you actually convince them of something? Like, this idea that I will always vote for this party, I'll never vote for the other party. And I said, once again, this is a problem of this cult of personality. People need to disconnect themselves from the personalities. Like, the leader of the opposition doesn't have a personality. The leader of the current Conservative Party doesn't have a personality. So hopefully some change will take place. But I like being lied to. Is this what we can take away from this voter?
Okay. So you don't trust them?
Well, I have my doubts.
Okay.
The campaign, I think the Conservatives are mainly focused on ULEZ issue, which I think is, it doesn't appeal to me personally, because I do support the ULEZ expansion.
Yep.
And I would have wanted them to focus on what the Conservatives are supposed to be about, which is, supporting enterprise in the
Supporting enterprise? Where did you get that idea? Yeah, the Conservatives are supposed to be supporting enterprise. And what have they been doing over the last number of years? What did Boris Johnson say about business? And you're going to continue to vote for the Conservatives. But why? Because, yes, they have thrown businesses under a bus. Yes, they have inflicted the country with Brexit, have inflicted Brexit upon Britain. But, those fees, they're going up if Labour get into power. VAT, priorities, guys.
the country, etc.
Yep.
Which I don't think that they are being able to do at the moment.
I get buses everywhere, so it's not really ULEZ, but cost of living, obviously.
Yeah.
Working mum and everything. So
This is the most depressing part. This is somebody who is probably struggling. She's talking here about the problems, and she's going to continue to vote for the Conservatives. So she doesn't want things to get better. You can't complain. You can't continually vote for a party that throws you under a bus and then complain that you're under a bus. And say, well, I'm going to vote for the people who threw me under the bus at the next election. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like, I understand the tribalism, but you can't complain about the economy. You can't complain about the cost of living crisis. You can't complain about any of these things if you're voting for the people who are making your life a misery. Makes no sense to me.
Kids' education. Yeah. My daughter's out of work at the moment. She's trying to find her a job and that. So that's the kind of main problems that we're dealing with at the moment.
What do you think of Boris Johnson stepping down?
I think it was wrong for him to step down personally, but I did vote for him because I needed a change, because I've always thought him a bit of a joke, but.
It was wrong for him to step down, but I voted for him because he was a bit of a joke. Now, when did the joke end? Or, in this guy's eyes, is the joke still going on? Because it must be still going on, because you still think it was a bad idea for him to step down. So the joke was worth it. Like, it was worth voting for a joke because it continued in some way. And if Boris Johnson had not resigned, everything would be great. The joke would have continued. Like, this guy says that he voted for Boris Johnson because he was a bit of a joke. And he believed it was wrong for Johnson to resign. So you think it was all a massive joke and it was worth it?
It might change politics, which it did for a start, but it wasn't permanent.
What are you talking about? It wasn't permanent. The joke wasn't permanent. You wanted a joke. You wanted a clown. But then things went badly, and now you want the clown to remain? No, the problem was voting for a clown. The problem was voting for a charlatan. You voted for the clown and you got a circus. And now you're complaining that the country has been turned into a circus. You have to take some responsibility too. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.